Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker. The date today is February 26th, 2023, and I have a sermon called Look Up and Live. Two particular scriptures, one from the Old Testament and one from the New, and they relate to each other. So let's start with the Old Testament one from Numbers 21. From Mount Hor, they set out by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. But the people became impatient on the way. The people spoke against God and against Moses. "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we detest this miserable food." Then the Lord sent poisonous serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and so that many Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, "We have sinned by speaking against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord to take away the serpents from us." So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, "Make a poisonous serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten shall look at it and live." So Moses made a serpent of bronze and put it on a pole, and whenever a serpent bit someone, that person would look at the serpent of bronze and live. Okay, we skip to the Gospel of John, the 3rd chapter, where John says, "And just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him may have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish but have eternal life. Indeed, God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Those who believe in him are not condemned, but those who do not believe are condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of the only Son of God. And this is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and the people loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For all who do evil hate the light and do not come to the light so that their deeds may not be exposed. But those who do what is true to the light, they come to the light so that it may be clearly seen that their deeds have been done in God." Moses had a tough time as leader of the liberated Hebrews, wandering in the wilderness. They yearned for the good old days of Egyptian captivity. At least they had food and water. And I can imagine some of the complaining that they would do. It's playing in my head, and it goes something like this. "Sure, that was an inconvenient fact of the fact of being enslaved by the Egyptians, but other than that, in hindsight, it wasn't all that bad. We know we've complained before, and God gave us manna that we gather each morning, but we've eaten manna every day. What would be wrong with a little variety? Maybe pomegranates once in a while. And the quail were awesome, thousands of them falling from the sky just in time for dinner. But once in a while, instead of quail, how about if we could have some cows fall out of the sky some morning, a little steak instead of squab? We don't want to sound ungrateful, but we're bored. Better we should have stayed in Egypt with all-night groceries and farmers markets and stuff." So that's what I can imagine them saying to Moses. And Moses, at another point, complains to God about his wicked and stiff-necked people. In this story, God gets frustrated with his people and infests their way with poisonous snakes. And the snakes bite and people die. And in typical Old Testament cause and effect theology, if bad things are happening, then we must have screwed up. So the people come back to Moses and apologize and they asked that Moses undo the problem with the snakes. But the solution isn't snake eradication. Moses is instructed by God to make a representational snake and to put it high on a pole. The snakebite cure will be to look up and fix your eyes on the snake, the bronze snake. So what's this all about? It took a little study, but I discovered that because snakes shed their skin, they were thought to die and come back to life again. Ancient people saw the snake as a symbol of fertility, therefore, as well as a poisonous death. So the serpent was a symbol of both life and death. So when you experience a snake bite and contemplate death, look up to the bronze snake on a pole, possibly a symbol of life regenerating itself. Snakes on poles is a really old symbol for the human civilization. The winged version of two snakes wrapped around a pole with wings at the top is known as the caduceus. And this staff with snakes was carried by the Olympian god Hermes, who was a messenger from the gods to the humans. Another snake on a stick, this time a single snake with no wings, was the staff of Asclepius. Now, Asclepius was a half-human, half-god being of Greek mythology, and he was also a healer, just as Hermes had healing capabilities. Let's turn to New Testament, to John 3:16, the most familiar and the most often quoted passage of the New Testament. The passage begins with a reference to Moses lifting up the serpent in the wilderness, a reference I would bet most of us didn't know much about. And so just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him may have eternal life. So the Son of Man must be lifted up on a pole, on a cross, that whoever sees Christ crucified and believes may have eternal life, in the same way in which, having been terminally snake-bitten, the wandering Hebrews looked up to the snake on a pole and were saved from death. And next, we have that famous verse, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish but may have eternal life." But let's not stop there. The passage goes on. "Indeed, God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him." It's important to me that God is a God of love and not a God of condemnation. God so loved the world. Now, the passage describes God as a God of love, even though it talks also about condemnation. The word love appears once, the word condemnation appears 3 times. I did a lot of weddings in homes throughout the San Francisco Bay Area, and at one home wedding, as the guests were arriving, the 4-year-old son of one couple attending was playing in the backyard. He had found a football. And about every 20 seconds, he would yell, "Dad, watch me!" And he would throw the football in the air, and he would run to catch it. And then, though he was the only one playing the game, he would fall like a tree, having been tackled by himself. And I marveled at this self-tackling. It stuck with me, even though I can't remember a thing about the wedding. I remember that particular detail about the 4-year-old tackling himself. Those who believe in him are not condemned, but those who do not believe are condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of the only Son of God. And this is the judgment, that the light has come into the world, and people loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For all who do evil hate the light and do not come to the light, so that their deeds may not be exposed. But those who do what is true come to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that their deeds have been done in God. Now, as I said, I believe in God as a God of love. Light comes into the world. The light is there for any and all. Those who see, says Emily Dickinson, take off their shoes. Each of us in our freedom makes a choice. Many of us have a genius for self-tackling. In our freedom, we choose to stay in darkness rather than move toward the light. But God causes his sun to shine on the good people and bad, and his rain to fall on the just and the unjust. We make our own decision to move toward the light or to stay in darkness. It's not God who tackles us or condemns us. We don't need a judging God who metes out the punishment for misdeeds. We do it to ourselves. We hide in darkness. We don't need someone to tackle us just short of the goal line. We do it ourselves. God so loved the world, all of us, that he sent his Son. It's up to us to decide whether we look up and take in the depth of that love from the cross, or whether we will continue to hide in darkness. Now, God bless you. If you find value here, I would appreciate it if you would share it. And stay safe. Take care.